Oh, right. That's it then. I better cut out the swearing.
That won't stop us.
Tony,
No.
Tony, are you happy to introduce?
Yeah, this is Steve Malloy, who's a Rotarian down in the Bristol area. We've just heard from him before the start of the meeting. And he was recommended by another club and through the district newsletter. And when I contacted him and found out that Glastonbury was going to be the subject, we also involved my son, Andrew Perini, who has a lot of dealings at Glastonbury and might hopefully in the future have some work to do there with Arcadia Spectacular. I know that Steve is a retired policeman, but is still involved with the security at Glastonbury when and if it happens, and is going to give us a presentation which, as far as I'm aware, was titled The Security of the Glastonbury Festival. So Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
On behalf of our club, give our compliments to the president of your club.
I will.
And we will look forward now to what you have to say.
Right. I'll first things first, I'll just do a bit of an audio check. Just wave if you can all hear me. Yeah, that's it. Well done. Yeah, that's okay. And perhaps Tony, if you can just tell me if the slideshow comes up okay. I'll just bring it up.
What I'll also do, if you don't mind, Steve, is if everyone can mute the microphones while Steve's doing his presentation, please.
Yeah, that's very kind. Thank you.
Yeah.
You've got that slide, I hope.
Yeah, go to start presentation.
Yeah, that's it. I'm just going to go
from the beginning.
Yeah, that's it. Where we go, there we go. So we're all up and running. Right. Okay then.
Hang on. Hang on. Now we are. Okay.
Okay. Lovely. Right. Okay then. So first things first, I'll just give a quick pen picture of myself, and then a quick pen picture as to how I got involved in the festival and why I'm raising money for prostate cancer. A little bit about my background. Steve Malloy, speaking to you from North Somerset. I'm a member of Clevedon Yo Rotary Club on the Somerset coast between Bristol and Weston-super-Mare. Twice past president, currently the secretary, twice Paul Harris winner. So that's a little bit about me. I joined the police service at 19 and a half, did my 30 years service, ended up retiring as with the rank of inspector in 2004. And during the course of my my service, I did attend Glastonbury on a number of occasions in varying ranks when the police were heavily involved in the festival. They still are to a certain extent. Retired in 2004, joined the NHS, worked in the NHS for 3.5 years as a conflict resolution trainer. First fact, completely unconnected with Glastonbury, but when I first joined the NHS in 2004, in 2003, the year before, over 100,000 people, doctors, nurses, casualty staff, were violently assaulted in the workplace in 1 year. Luckily enough, they grabbed the bull by the horns and had a quite dynamic period of addressing the issue, and the numbers have now fallen quite substantially. Although I have to say that's all not down to me. Unfortunately, you know, it's down to a lot of hard work from a lot of people. So worked for the NHS for 3.5 years. Then I left the NHS and formed my own company and continued with that style of work until I virtually finished about 12-18 months ago. I still do a few bits of odds and sods, and I still get involved in the Glastonbury Festival. When I retired from the police service, I got involved in working at the festival, worked my way up through the rank structure or the command structure, and I'm now what's known as the Silver Commander for stewarding and security on nights, so 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And I'll explain about the title Silver Commander very shortly. So that's a little bit about my background, a little bit about me. Why prostate cancer? About 5 or 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. My consultant said, right then, Steve, when your PSA level gets above a certain point, we'll need to do something about it. It got above that point. I was offered some options, and I decided on a radical prostatectomy, which is removal of the prostate by means of robot surgery. So I had my prostate removed. That was 4 years ago last December. So 4 years and a couple of months now. And touch wood, that's the sound of me touching wood. I'm fitting well. And I thought, how could I give some money back to, or how could I give some thanks back to the NHS from a material perspective? So I started doing these talks. Originally, they were face-to-face, and obviously now they're on Zoom. And my current total is around about £3,500. £1,500 was given to Southmead Hospital in Bristol, who were absolutely fabulous, to go towards the purchase of a new robot for performing the operations. Then I gave, and that was utilising a Rotary matching grant. Then I gave about £350 to the urology department. And last year, all on Zoom, I raised £1,770, which I sent to Prostate Cancer UK. And that's where I'm going to send the donations this year as well. Normally, if I was attending a dinner meeting, then I would offer all the male members in the audience a free prostate check. And I would normally bring my rubber gloves, and utilising a table, I could just check to make sure that you're all okay, gents. Obviously, you can't do that at a distance. But seriously, joking apart, please, please, please get it checked out if you get any of the symptoms at all. It is the male equivalent of breast cancer, which causes our members of the female members of the population tremendous heartache, distress, injury, and obviously death. We don't want that to happen to the male members of the population. So please, please, please get it checked out. So the talk's entitled Mick, Keith and Me. It is about the Glastonbury Festival. Mick and Keith, you'll know, are members of the Rolling Stones. Me is little old me, and you'll see it in slightly smaller font, and I'll explain the reason for that very shortly. So, a few facts and figures. 135,000 tickets are sold. It's got their subject to licensing. Now, the event is licensed, the same if you were holding a barn dance in a village hall, in a village on the outskirts of Carlisle, you'd need a public entertainment licence. Well, Glastonbury needs a public entertainment licence as well. If you were running a barn dance in a village hall, it might run into a couple of sheets of paper. It's substantially more than that for Glastonbury. It's about the size of the Old Testament. The licensing application goes into the local authority around about the turn of the year for the festival the following year, and it's always held the last weekend in June. The tickets are sold online, invariably on a Sunday morning. Start the selling at 9 o'clock. And for the tickets for the 2020 festival, which would have been the 50th anniversary of the first festival, the tickets sold out in 34 minutes. So if you went online at 25 to 10, they were all gone. And just to give you an idea as to the size of the festival is about the same size, population-wise, as Bath and North East Somerset. So if you took the Georgian city of Bath and all its surrounding villages, took all the inhabitants and dumped them in fields in the middle of Somerset, that would be the Glastonbury Festival. But obviously it's within fields in a rural setting with all the problems that that gives you. No drainage, no street lights, etc., etc. First festival was 1970, and there's a few pub quiz questions here. The admission to the first festival was £1, including free milk, bearing in mind that Michael Eavis is a dairy farmer. Costs you £1, and you've got a gold top as well. Other tops are available, I hasten to add. And it happened the day, the first festival was the day after Jimi Hendrix died. So another sad fact. And the headline act was Mark Bolan. Well, actually, it was they were called Tyrannosaurus Rex then, but included Mark Bolan, who a few years later tragically died by wrapping his mini around a tree in London, if I remember correctly. A few facts and figures there about the size of the festival. And the ticket price, £265 plus a £5 booking fee. A lot of people say £270 seems a hell of a lot. But if you parallel that, for example, with my local football stadium, Bristol City, the mighty Bristol City, Ashton Gate, the Theatre of Dreams, although there's not many dreams there at the moment, it's only nightmares, unfortunately, the way they're playing. They have summer concerts. And for just a concert, for a headline act, Spice Girls they've had down there recently, people of that nature, you might pay £100 just for 3 or 4 hours entertainment. So £270 for a whole weekend and camping, and the wide variety and myriad of acts that are on doesn't actually seem a bad price. So my role, I work 12-hour nights, 7 at night to 7 in the morning, and luckily enough I leave then and I'm home by 8 o'clock. I don't live very far away, about 45 minutes to an hour, so I come home every night so I can be guaranteed a good kit. The gates open on Wednesday morning, where you might have the numbers of people outside waiting to get in on Wednesday morning might be the same as a decent Premiership football crowd. And when you see some shots of of some of the wet festivals that we've had, you'll understand why people want to get in there first thing Wednesday morning and pitch in an area which perhaps might be less susceptible to being flooded. Main entertainment is Friday to Sunday, although before that they have a firework display, they have a large bonfire. Some of the smaller venues may well have entertainment going on, but Wednesday and Thursday allows people to get in, camp, orientate themselves and so on. I'm the Silver Commander for security and stewarding on nights. I have a colleague who does the day shift. Silver Commander, most of the emergency services, police, fire, ambulance, coast guard, etc., will operate on the basis of what's known as bronze, silver and gold system of command and control. The gold commander is the person that sets the strategy. The silver commander looks at the tactics. How are we going to achieve our aims and objectives with the resources I've got? And then the bronze is out and about, down dirty with the kids, doing the job. I've worked my way up from being the bronze commander out on the ground to I'm currently the silver commander on nights for security and stewarding. And based in what is grandiosely entitled there on the side, the Command and Control Centre, but to all intents and purposes for the remainder of the year, it's a cowshed. They do clear the floor before they allow us in. So that's me when I'm not in soft focus as I was earlier on. That photograph hasn't been touched up. That is actually how I look. That was a couple of years ago when I was out and about performing the role of the bronze commander out and about on the patch. So that's probably one of the more evocative sights you'll see at Glastonbury, the pyramid stage. And please bear in mind, everything you see now, from the perimeter fence to all the structures, are put up and taken down every year. The only thing that remains up is the skeleton of the pyramid stage. And very, very recently, when you see the Arcadia site later on, it's an old industrial crane. The base of that is still on site as well, but everything else is taken away. That's an interesting shot, because the field there in front of the pyramid stage holds around about 100,000 people. And as you can see, there's not an awful lot of social distancing happening. If we talk, as we were talking very briefly before I started, about subsequent festivals, as you know, 2020 was cancelled because we're in the middle of the pandemic. They've already cancelled 2021. And there was a virologist in the paper, I think it was yesterday, saying festivals might not be able to be run for the next few years. I have a certain amount of skepticism in relation to that. And they do have a strategic document called the Purple Guide. It's the guide for how you should run a large-scale event such as Glastonbury. And that's being updated to take into account the problems that the pandemic will provide. And nothing's insurmountable. If you consider it, currently the public inquiry is on for the Manchester arena bombings. Now, the Manchester arena bombing happened a couple of months before the Glastonbury Festival, but the festival still went ahead with improved security, improved practices and procedures. So things can be, nothing's insurmountable. We can get around these problems and issues. That's the fence which surrounds the festival. That's my mate Tim. The fence, 6 miles of fence, as you saw, erected and taken down every year. And it's designed predominantly to keep people out. Bearing in mind that people have paid their money to get in, they want to feel safe and secure in the festival. They want to ensure that their belongings aren't the subject of theft. So the fence is designed to keep people that aren't ticket holders out. although we do get people trying to climb over it, tunnel under it, knock it down and things of that nature. It's very, very much more robust nowadays. And due to the fact that we've improved the ticketing regime with various security additions, the tickets are very much harder to forge. So people are venting their anger on the fence and trying to get over it, under it, etc., etc., as I said. So you've purchased a ticket, you arrive 8 o'clock on the Wednesday morning. If you want to be there, 8 a.m. is when they open the doors, and you would go into one of those. That's a pedestrian gate. You go in there, you hand over your ticket, they rip your ticket in half, give you a stub back, and then they will affix to your wrist a wristband. So that's my wrist, not to scale, I hasten to add. And as you can see, I've got 3 wristbands on there. The silver one at the top will get me into the command and control center. The middle one is exactly the same as the punters would get, which has got EPO on it, which stands for Easy Pass Out. That will get you in and out of the festival, bearing in mind that some people will be living outside, may well be staying in facilities outside, may well have not camped on site, but be using facilities from other areas, pardon me. And the P for production means I'm a member of the Glastonbury operation, so it allows me to go places where the public can't, behind the stages, backstage, and things of that nature. So they come through the queuing lanes, and as you can see, there's people coming in there. Please bear in mind how people are dressed there. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, nice blue sky, all very well and good, but then you get the British summer kicking in. So when I show you some photographs of some of the wet ones later on, you'll appreciate that people should, but don't always have a contingency for when it rains. As you can see, they're working their way down towards the camping area. That road there is called, or that lane is called Muddy Lane, and on occasions it does live up to its name. You'll see the footwear that people are wearing, shorts. So okay in this weather, but you should really have contingencies. One of the camping areas. The other reasons that people want to get in early on the Wednesday is so that they can erect their tent somewhere prominent so that they can find it after dark. Bearing in mind the festivals run at the last weekend in June, when it's not normally getting dark till about 10:30 at night, and it's getting light again about 4:15, 4:30. There's not an awful lot of hours of darkness. Having said that, there are no street lighting. There is no names on the roads. So being next to one of those stripy poles, somebody with a flag or whatever it may be, might enable you to find your tent after dark. The worst question you get as a security officer about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning is 2 people wander up to you who have been to the cider bus. There is a cider bus on site, which I can recommend. And they say, "Oh, don't know if you can help me, mate. Can't find me tent." Okay then, young man, what colour is it? Well, it's green. And as you can see, most of them are either green or blue. And after dark, they all look the same. So the chances of finding it are fairly remote. So people tend to, I nearly said park their tent, pitch their tent somewhere where they're going to be able to easily find it afterwards. And it was a question that was asked to me yesterday: what happens to the tents after the festival? A lot of festivals, people were erecting their tents and then couldn't be bothered to take them home and leaving them behind. That creates 2 problems. We're obliged to search all the tents after the festival to make sure there's nobody in there distress, ill, injured, or whatever it may be. And then we've got to dispose of the tents. So a couple of years ago, Emily Evis, who basically runs a festival now on behalf of her father, Michael, was actively encouraging people to take their tents away with them. And I was told the latest figures for the last festival that was run in 2019, that 95% of the tents were taken away. If that's an accurate figure, that's a dramatic improvement, because otherwise they all had to go to landfill. They weren't really good enough to be used by charities such as Shelter Box or the Rotary or anybody of that nature. There is a lot of requirement for tents around the world, but not robust enough, and they were all ending up in landfill, unfortunately. Another shot of the general camping. Or you can pay a premium and have, and this is just one of the examples, I'll show you another one later on, erected yurt. Obviously, if you go in there, then the accommodation is a little bit more spacious, improved security, access to perhaps better showers, etc. But like anything, you pay for it. You either go for the Travel Lodge or the Hilton option, I would suggest. The site is very well signposted. You can see the signs there, and you can see one there for the Ivy Mead Medical Centre. If you imagine the old 70s American serial MASH with the old canvas hospital, that is what the Ivy Mead Medical Centre is like. They put it up and they take it down every year, and they can deal with most medical emergencies on site. One of the girls down there back in 2019 was telling me, shortly after they opened, that particular year, she said they'd had a knock on the door. Bit difficult to do that on a tent, but you know what I mean. And a security officer wanders in and says, "Here, miss, don't know if you can help me. I've got a bit of toothache." So they sat him in the chair, had a look and sorted it out. Lo and behold, 5 or 10 minutes later, another knock on the tent flap. "Here, miss, I don't know if you can help me. I've got a pain in my jaw." And she was forming the opinion that all the security staff that didn't have NHS dentists were waiting until they came to Glastonbury to get their teeth sorted. So there are also advantages for working down there as well. That's one of the fixed structures. There's a lot of structures like this around the site. Helps people to orientate themselves as to where they are on the site. That's known as the meeting point. The thing there, which looks like some people putting a rope in the middle, that revolves around and lights up after dark. And it's just a way of orientating people as to where they are. And as you can see, plenty of signposts telling you exactly where things are. So the security operation, we have stewards. All I would say to all of you, and I know none of you are old enough to have children, but when you eventually do, children or grandchildren, being a volunteer steward can be a way forward if they want to get involved in the event management industry. A lot of the stewards are volunteers. They will be asked to work a couple of shifts, 2 or 3 shifts, and then for the remainder of their time, they're allowed access into the festival to enjoy it as a punter. So that might be a way forward. A lot of the stewards are provided by Oxfam. They do receive training. They're given fluorescent tabards, access to food and things of that nature. So it can be a way of getting involved at a very low level. I have to say some of the roles they're asked to do can be quite boring. So they need to balance that out against the free time that they will get. Security staff trained to various levels, including SIA trained staff. And I mentioned SIA. SIA stands for Security Industry Authority, and those are what some people will call bouncers, but licensed door staff. And if you go into your pubs, clubs, restaurants of a weekend in Carlisle, you will see people smartly dressed, collar and tie, and they will be wearing an identification badge with their picture on it. They will be SIA trained staff, and they are trained in things like first aid, fire safety, crowd management, communication skills and things of that nature, and they are very, very competent and professional. We obviously still have police on site, but it's gone, Glastonbury's gone not dissimilar to the football industry. A lot of large scale football matches now, you won't find any police in the stadium. All the security of the stadium is dealt with by security staff and stewards. So numbers of those have gone up and police numbers have gone down. And that's replicated to a certain extent at the Glastonbury Festival as well. And what we do is we practice for the what ifs. Prior to the festival, we hold a couple of tabletop exercises and we have incident plans to cover most contingencies. Bad weather, helicopter crash, collapse of a structure, interruption for the water, you know, those types of things. That's some of the security staff. They're in the pit in front of the main stage. As you can see, they're doing what they should be doing, which is watching the crowd, looking for any signs of distress, anybody misbehaving and so on. If somebody at the front of the crowd there was suffering any distress, they could pull them over the barrier, administer first aid as appropriate, and then discharge them at the wings of the stage. Bearing in mind that some of the people on the barrier there may well have been there 4 or 5 hours and worked their way to the front because the person due on stage is their favourite act. And as you can see, the gentleman there in his top hat, clutching a cup, if he speaks to our colleague there in the sunglasses, our security colleague in the sunglasses, he will get him some fresh water from the barrel that you can see there on the left. One thing I would say is if we do get a hot festival, then sunstroke, sunburn and or dehydration can be a particular problem. And the security staff there are very good. When they're a little bit more relaxed on the Sunday and the legends are on, who in previous years have been people like Barry Gibb, Lionel Richie, people of that nature, they have in the past done some choreographed dances to their songs. So they are very funny. I'm sure you can catch some of those on YouTube. How do the police get around? That's one of the ways, or foot patrol. Certain number of vehicles on site, but riding or walking is probably the best. And certainly the police do use the mounted section quite extensively. Even in Somerset, we're lucky enough to still have a mounted section. And they're very good for crowd control, crowd management, looking for missing children. Very, very good rapport with the public. And certainly on the Sunday, they will dress both the horses and the riders up and have a little bit of fun with the punters down there. Very, very good resource to have on site. That's some of the campsite crew. Again, volunteers. Okay, when they're not working, they will have access to the festival. They're stood in front of their state-of-the-art caravan, you can see. What they will do is they will strategically place some of these caravans around the site, and then members of the public who are punters are encouraged to go up to these people and ask all the daft questions, like where's the nearest toilets, who's next on the pyramid stage, where can I get this, where can I get that, where's the nearest pedestrian gate, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow, and so on. And they're very, very good, and they support and complement the stewarding and security operation. That, ladies and gents, is a Rotary Club. They're under their gazebo. As you can see, they've got some ensuite facilities. They've got in-gazebo entertainment and a method of making a brew. And they're one of the local clubs from Somerset. And as well as a security operation on the site, the surrounding villages, their residents need to be protected as well. So what we do is we set up an outer ring, and what the Rotarians are doing there is they're checking car park passes on vehicles going past certain checkpoints to make sure it is only villagers going down into some of these isolated areas and nobody that's not entitled to be there. Now they will do that 24/7 for a few days before to a few days after the festival, and that accrues their Rotary Club a substantial sum which they can obviously used for charitable purposes. One of the on-site fire engines. We do have an on-site fire brigade and an on-site ambulance service, but if any of the casualties were really serious, then we would take them to the local acute hospitals, and we have a couple on standby to receive casualties. Just mention these. You can get down and dirty with the kids later on today, ladies and gents. As you can see, these are cream whipper cartridges. They are metal, but if you want to get down and dirty with the kids, if you ever see any of those lying about on the floor, you can say, oh look, there's some of that hippie crack or noz. That's the two slang terms, hippie crack or noz. You may well have seen quite a few professional footballers sniffing the contents of these canisters from balloons. What you do is you break open the cartridge, you discharge the contents in just an ordinary balloon, and then you inhale it from the balloon over a period of time, and it gives you a high. Under the Psychoactive Substances Act, and there will be an exam at the end, so please remember this, under the Psychoactive Substances Act, it's banned from dealing in these or illegally importing them. So they can be imported for obviously for legitimate purposes. They're used for whipping cream. You can possess them legally, but what you can't do is illegally import them or alternatively deal in them. And by dealing them, if you had a bag of 50 of those and you were stood on a street corner charging the school kids a £5 a go for a cartridge, then you would be committing a criminal offence under the Psychoactive Substances Act. They are a problem both environmentally and also it can lead kids on to more serious and potentially lethal substances. Now that's a canister that I found in my local cricket club car park. They are about 1.5 to 2 inches long, very heavy, very bad for the environment. And certainly if I ever see any lying around in my area, I always drop the local police a some details just on their contact us page, because if people are using those canisters, perhaps in a park, in a recreation ground or anything of that nature, it can lead to antisocial behavior, but more importantly, it can lead kids on to other things and more serious substances, cocaine, heroin, and things of that nature. So if you do see any of those lying around, I know your local police force would appreciate knowing where the kids are using those in order that they can stamp down on it. Nitrous oxide or NOS. So, prepare to be shocked. It's the toilets. Everybody's got to do it. So here they are. And there we go. Probably the best way to explain what you've got there, you've got what looks like a saloon door. On the left-hand side there, you can see the top of somebody's head and the bottom of somebody's feet. If you go through the saloon door, you will find a hole. Normally got a toilet seat on it. And then you do whatever you're going to do. And then that drops down into a great big pit, which is underneath the toilets. The toilets are known as long drops. And basically, it is a long drop. The worst question you can get asked is a security guard. Somebody wanders up to you, having come out of there, and you can see the gentleman on the right-hand side there sanitizing his hands. Good lad. The worst question you can have is, "Hello, mate. I've just been in the long drop, and I have my mobile phone in my top pocket of my shirt. It's just fallen down the hole. Any chance of getting it back?" And the answer is unequivocally no, because I'm not going down there. And when you see the toilet cleaner very shortly, you'll understand that the chances of getting it back in one piece is pretty remote. So, the toilet cleaner, there she is. She does a fabulous job. The bit of equipment she stood in front of is called a gully sucker. You've got to be careful how you say that, gully sucker. And basically what she does is at certain times of the day and night, she will come around, stick that blue tube down in the hole, suck all the contents out and take them away. And I didn't know until I watched Countryfile a couple of weeks ago that actually human waste is very, very good as a fertilizer, and it does assist in keeping some aphids and bugs off crops. So if you have a bit of sweet corn and it's got a bit of a tang to it, you'll know the reason why. Seriously, apparently it does have certain merits. Or you can go to WaterAid's Toilet of Dreams. I think you get soft toilet paper. You've got to make a donation to a very, very good and worthwhile cause. Or if you're in some of the posh camping areas, then as you can see, we've got a China toilet bowl there on the right-hand side. So various level of WC facilities for various level of camping site. Not urinating on the land. I've mentioned, I put that sign up for the simple reason that similarly, if you went into a football stadium, next time we're allowed in, whether it's Carlisle, Brunton Park or anywhere else, there are a list of ground conditions. In a football stadium, for example, you can't run on the pitch, you can't use flares, you can't throw stuff onto the pitch, coins, things of that nature, no racist language, etc. We have a similar set of ground rules for the Glastonbury Festival. Now, urinating on the land is a good, what we call attitude test. If you go up to somebody who might be urinating against that Harris fencing and say, "Excuse me, young man, should you be doing that there?" "Oh, I'm ever so sorry, mate. I was so cool short. I won't do it again. Sorry about that." Then they've passed the attitude test and they'll probably be allowed to go on their way. If you tap somebody on the shoulder and say, "Should you be doing that there, young man?" and they say, "Who the hell are you?" then they've probably failed the attitude test, and that may well get them ejected from the premises. Anybody contravening the ground regulations, which might be the use of flares, use of drones, throwing stuff at the stage, things of that nature, that could get them ejected or evicted. We take them to an eviction tent. The details of their transgression is documented. Their wristband is cut off, and then we are duty bound to run them to one of a number of locations, a couple of the nearby towns or villages, or alternatively Castle Carey railway station as a place of safety in order that they can make their way home. We can't just kick them out of the site, because certainly after dark, a lot of the A roads there have got surrounding the festival site have got no street lighting at all, and obviously we've got a duty of care for their safety. That's one of the catering facilities on site. When I first joined the police service, one of the things they said to us, "Lads and lasses, whatever you do, don't ever eat anything off the site." Nowadays, the food is actually fabulous. You can see the lady there having her cut of courses with a bottle of wine, and the entertainers just coming on to serenade her with some organ music. You can see the chandelier just at the top of the picture there. I looked at the menu on this particular in this particular tent. It's absolutely fabulous. And what they have now, they have environmental health staff on site 24/7. And before the festival open, they will go down and examine every food outlet to ensure that they're complying with the appropriate legislation. And similarly, that your chip shop or kebab shop might have gradings 1 to 5 stars with regards to their health and hygiene. They won't allow any food stores to open because obviously they wouldn't want an outbreak of any sort of disease in a crowd which is that tightly packed. So they are very, very good from an environmental health perspective. What do they sell? Obviously, if it's nice and sunny, it'll be hats, sunscreen, flip-flops, things of that nature. If it's raining, there's a premium on wellies. Okay, that's the Pyramid Stage field. That's probably Wednesday or Thursday. As you can see, the crowd's in. They're having a mooch around, trying to orientate themselves. Just remember the greenness of that field now, and we'll come back to that later on. Another shot of the camping. One of the main tents, so you can see, you grab your 99. In that tent a couple of years ago, I saw the Bootleg Beatles, Keane. So they will have, as well as on the main archetypal stages, they will also have people performing in structures such as these. That's what Tony was alluded to. That's called Arcadia, spider-like device, made out of bits of scrap metal, and that lights up after dark. The little just below the eyes, that's the DJ booth, and you can see the size of the structure by the security man just wandering past in the distance in his fluorescent jacket. And surrounding that, you might have 30 or 40,000 people after dark seeing the light show and listen to the music. And I'll just show you a couple of shots of it up and running. So there we go, or probably a more spectacular one, that one there. It is something to be seen to be believed. The heat that's generated from those flames it is quite substantial, and they do put on a fabulous show. It was, however, in 2019 replaced by, oh, that's just one of the dancers surrounding the set. He's wearing a suit which conducts electricity, and they dance around to the music and provide a visual show.
I just interrupt there. That is fabulous to see. I've actually seen it, and it's just unbelievable what that guy. Well, there's 3 of them on stages or sub stages round, and
they are very, very good. I agree. I agree.
About 24,000 volts into the air is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll come off.
That is what it was replaced by in 2019. That's an old Avonmouth crane from Avonmouth Docks. And the footings go down into the ground a substantial distance. Just show you another shot. And that was a similar sort of thing, lit up after dark, loud music, big crowd, etc., and quite a spectacular show. Because like anything, if you had all your punters at one venue, then that could cause, and so dividing rule can be a problem. If you put on a load of entertainment on various stages, it does help to spread the crowd out a bit. And there it is when it's up and running. It is very, very spectacular. That was in 2019. That is the only, the base of that crane is the only other thing which is now on site. As well as the skeleton of the pyramid stage, they haven't removed the base of the crane. That's what's known as Silver Haze. That's the dance village where they play a lot of dance music. You can see a tent in the background there. In some of these tents after dark, to try and cut down on the ambient noise for the population that live in the town and villages surrounding the festival, they hold something called a silent disco. I've never seen anything so funny as a silent disco. Basically, the concept is when you go into a silent disco, you're given a set of headphones. You put the headphones on, and the music is played through the headphones. And I've never seen anything so funny as 3,000 people jigging around, dancing to Hi Ho Silver Lining, and you can't hear the music. Especially used where you get festivals where they are in inner city locations. They have 2 silent discos, for example, at the Reading Festival, which is right in the middle of Reading Town Centre. Try to make it as aesthetically pleasing as possible. If Glastonbury was a political party, I would say it would make Jeremy Corbyn look right-wing. So it gives you some sort of ideas to where it is politically. Now that is the outside of the drive-in cinema. You might think, well, do people actually drive their own cars in? No, they don't. If you look at that shot, the screen in the middle of the picture there, that is where the films are projected. So what they projected was classic movies after dark. And what the punters would do would be to sit in those cars that you can see there on the left-hand side and look up at the screen. If you imagine Fonz in Happy Days, or the Americans, when they used to go to their drive-in movies, that's what they were doing there. One of the issues that they encountered on the first year, they had to be very, very careful with the cars, because one of the phenomena that we do obviously get in the summer is thunder and lightning. So making sure that all the cars have got rubber on the tyres, because you'll all know, because there is a physics question in the exam at the end, you'll know about Faraday's cage. Obviously, if a lightning hits you and you've got rubber on the wheels, then the lightning will go to earth via the rubber, via the tyres. If you haven't got any tyres on the wheels, then that could be an issue. So trying to make sure that all the cars had the appropriate rubber from a safety perspective. So this is some of the cars from 2019. And coming up to my favourite one. And that's the type of car that I was driving when I first first joined the police service back in 1973. I don't think we had any Morris 1000s, but we certainly had Mark I Escorts. So yeah, a little bit of fun there. General shot of the crowd. As you can see, age profile of Glastonbury, anybody from 9 months to 90 years of age, they're all welcome, and they all do attend. Fair bit of grey hair on display there, as you can see. Somebody asked me the other day, if I go back to that one, age profile of Glastonbury Festival. I said if you had 10 regular Glastonbury Festival goers, probably only about perhaps 3 of them would be under 25. Quite a large proportion are, and you can see in that shot there, the gentleman with the pat there on the right hand side, I would suggest he's of a certain age. The gentleman sat on the grass, got people with children. So the age profile is quite varied as opposed to some other festivals around the country. Starting to get dark. So litter is an issue. Remember that green field I showed you earlier on? After a night's entertainment? Or there. So litter can be a substantial problem regularly throughout the festival and also at the end. So what's the solution? Those good people, the litter pickers. When I'm going off at 7 o'clock in the morning, those people have already been up a couple of hours. They've showered, they've had breakfast, they get their litter pickers, and you'll be surprised how effective they are. They will go down onto the site and they will pick it as clean as they can before people get up, and around about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning when the entertainment starts again. So they're very, very good. The Glastonbury Festival team do retain a number of those after the festival to help with the clear up, providing them with somewhere to camp, access to food, and a small remuneration. So they do stay on after the festival and help the site to be cleared. I'm also told that there is the facility on site. They've got a tractor with a large magnet on it, so they drive that around the site just to make sure that any metal objects are out of the grass, bearing in mind that Michael Eavis will want to turn his cattle back out onto the grass as soon as possible. Shot of the crowd after dark. And that one actually comes back to the title of my talk, Mick, Keith and Me. You can probably just see a small figure in the middle of the stage there under the spotlight. That's one of the Rolling Stones. And ladies and gents, that's about as close as I've ever got to them. Because people regularly say, well, who have you met? Who have you met? And the answer is not very, 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 very few people very close. Because bearing in mind, my number one role is to look after the safety of the crowd. Densest crowd I've ever been in was probably the Rolling Stones a few years ago. After dark, most people shoulder to shoulder, but very, very well behaved. 99.9% of them compliant. No, touch wood, major issues. Disabled access, disabled people are catered for. That's one of the disabled platforms around the pyramid stage field, and as you can see, they've got an excellent view of the stage and appropriately stewarded. Okay, so they're very well catered for. That's inside one of the big tents, and obviously, if we did have a problem, and I'll show you some photographs of some wet ones very shortly. If we did have a problem, we have had people at the Glastonbury Festival in the past, in the summer, suffering from hypothermia. So that in itself can be an issue. So all I would say is, one of the things we can do is, if it was necessary, would be to commandeer one of these tents and just get everybody in out of the wind and rain. Because if you remember how the people were dressed earlier on, if it is really wet, cold, etc., we have had people there during the summer months suffering from hypothermia. BBC setting up all their kit for outside broadcasts. That's from the top of the site. I walked up to the top of the site and took that photograph. The command and control centre, the barn where we operate, is about as far as you can see in the opposite distance. And to walk to where I took that photograph probably took me hour and a quarter, hour and a half. And that's, I don't hang around. I think I'm fairly fit and active, wearing boots and wellies, working your way through the crowd, answering people's questions and so on. Couple of other general shots. That's one of the marching bands. Now, Glastonbury is the sort of place where you could come around the corner and you can find somebody juggling, or fire eating, or there's a marching band, or there's somebody singing opera. It is very eclectic, and we'll show you a few shots of some of the characters very shortly. So, better show you a wet one. There is no prize for this. See if you can spot the person in distress. Got him? Right at the bottom, between the two black bags, you can just about see his face. Now, a lot of people say, well, why don't they put more infrastructure in? What people need to remember is, for the remainder of the year, it's a working dairy farm. And although 2020 was the 50th anniversary of the first one, not actually the 50th festival, because every 4 or 5 years, Michael Eavis will hold a fallow year when he allows the ground to recover, etc., etc. So though there's been 50th anniversary in 2020, there's not been 50 festivals. Don't get caught out on that one. So yeah, the weather can be a problem. You can only put so much infrastructure into what is, to all intents and purposes, agricultural farmland. Couple of other shots. I wouldn't necessarily do that, and I wouldn't recommend that for skincare options. I think I know what the brown stuff might be. No kids have been harmed in the pushing of that pram. They're only taking their beer in, so just gives you an idea as to the mucky conditions underfoot. And a gentleman there using his wheelbarrow from home quite sensibly to get his kit in and out of the festival site. Another general shot of the, which is why you've got so many thousand people there on Wednesday morning, keen to get in, so that they're further up the slope and not perhaps in some of the more challenging areas when and if wet weather comes. So some of the characters, as I said, age profile, people at Glastonbury, anybody from 9 months to 90 years of age. Very sensible for the young man or young lady, I don't know which it is, young lady I presume, because she's in pink, wearing her ear defenders. There we are. You can sit in front of a roaring fire, reading The Guardian on a sofa supplied by DFS, because they've always got a sale on, drinking your can of cider. That is an interesting shot. That's one of the staff who work on the festival. And believe it or not, he's in his hammock having a kip while the main stage is on. So you can imagine all the noise it's about. But these people work incredibly hard to get the festival on, and he's just snatching 40 winks while he can. And there's circus acts, there's comedy, There's a church service on Sunday. They have political figures down there, VIPs. You'll recall a few years ago, Jeremy Corbyn being chanted at by the Pyramid Stage crowd. Something for everybody. You can even have a go on the trapeze. Okay, I've not been there at 11:30 in the morning, so I've not had a go myself. Okay, music from around the world, especially on some of the smaller stages. Never tried that myself, but I presume it's one way of helping the crops out. That gentleman's very good. He plays good quality violin whilst tightrope walking. So just an example of the sort of thing you might see when you come around the corner. Now that, I'm told, is a Rotary club. I think the lady second from the left is an incoming district governor. But seriously, you'll find people in some bizarre fancy dress. That's just one lot, but there's another lot that I mean to get a photograph of next time I'm down there. And if you imagine Michael Caine in the film Zulu, white pith helmet, red tunic, black trousers, boots, they go down dressed like that regularly, and they look absolutely fabulous. I'll get a photograph of one of those in subsequent years, I hope. I don't know who that is with Alan Yentob, but we do get VIPs down there. Luckily enough, we normally allocate a VIP day, which is Saturday, and luckily enough, most of them turn up during the day. So I'm in bed or having some food before I go back to the site, and nothing makes the security team go when somebody wanders in and says, "We've got so and so coming who's a VIP." They don't want any fuss, which is code for they want a bit of fuss, because invariably they come with a security entourage, etc. It could be minor royals, political figures, etc. Even the Dalai Lama there, who's with Alan Yentob, you'll appreciate, will come with his entourage. So that in itself can provide, challenging difficulties. That's me just limbering up before a night shift. I just thought I'd throw that one in. And here's some of the teams. Just going from left to right. On the left-hand side, there's Dave. He used to work for the Dorset Constabulary. He was a senior officer. He ran the Olympic sailing at Weymouth in 2012. So giving ideas to the people that we've got on site. Phil in the middle there worked with us for a number of years. He's the security manager for the Olympic Stadium in East London, where West Ham currently play their home games, where we have the World Olympics. And Jen on the right hand side there lives not very far away from me. She's helped out in the past with the licensing application for the festival. And you can see there in the background a monitor. We put up, I've never counted them, it's got to be 30 to 40 CCTV cameras every year. That's to enable us to monitor crowd density, crowd flow, traffic management, try to cut down on crime, etc. And they provide good quality footage into the command and control centre so that we can look at where there might be pinch points or problems. A couple of other people I just mentioned there. Stood at the back is Chalky. Pardon me. Chalky is an ex-police officer. He also worked in the nuclear industry for a while at Hinkley Point C in Somerset. So Chalky can be very useful. If the electricity goes off, we just stand him in the corner and he glows in the dark, so that's useful. And 9670, Gary there, you may well have heard of the Bridgewater Illuminated Carnival. They have a carnival circuit in Somerset, and he helps to run the Bridgewater Carnival from a security and stewarding perspective. So there's a lot of experience around there. That's an inside shot, a general inside shot of the command and control centre, the barn. As you can see, it's all boarded out. We've got the television screens there with the monitors. We've got Wi-Fi. We've got CCTV. We've got good quality radios. We've got the internet, a method of logging incidents that happen. So it is quite substantial and very, very good structurally. So 2020, 50th anniversary, or would have been. I'm not going to do it forever, so they're bringing on some new management. And here's one of them. Okay, but by the time the next festival's on, he might be old enough to do it, I would suggest, but we'll see how it goes. And just a few final shots. people enjoying themselves. Most of the acts that are on the main stage will have a firework display at the end of their show. I don't know why I put that in. That's my food. I think I actually put on weight during the course of the week. As you can see, what they can turn out in the tent in the middle of a field is no odds to nobody. As you can see, I've got a nice tablecloth. I've got a drink. I think it's only juice. I've got a rose on the table in front of me. Absolutely fabulous food. A couple of other general shots. That's probably my favourite one. That's called the Ribbon Tower. And that's just an observation platform. And I think that's taken about 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning when the sun's just coming up. And as you can see there in front of the Ribbon Tower is our large teepees. Again, you pay that extra and you can accommodate you and your friends in an erected tent rather than having to erect it yourself. So would I recommend it? Absolutely. If you've got any friends and family who live down in Somerset, and they're, although it's called the Glastonbury Festival, it's actually in the village of Pilton. If you've got any of your friends or family who live in places like Glastonbury, Wells Street, Shepton Mallet, Cheddar, etc., they're entitled to a day visitor's tickets on a Sunday. I took my wife a few years ago and she said, thank you very much indeed, but I never want to go again. Whereas I, for example, I'd work down there for nothing. Don't tell my boss, but I would, because I love it to bits, although they do pay me. It is a sight not to be missed. If you've got any questions, please, please, please feel free to ask. Thank you very much indeed for your interest. This is the quite difficult part of the day, because I click the button now, and one of these days there's just going to be one person left there snoring over the top of their laptop. So I hope you're all still there. I don't know if you are. If you are, thanks very much indeed, and thank you very much indeed for your donation, or your donation when it comes to prostate cancer. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask.
Dave, before we go on, could you just move your camera around a little bit? We can't see you because it's just the glare from behind.
Okay, I'll
Yeah, you lost.
oh yeah, okay, I'll I say it's so sunny down here in Somerset, you know, I can't help that. I'm afraid that should be better.
It's
That's
blue
perfect.
sky here too in Carlisle.
Okay, if you've got any questions, then I'd be more than welcome, more than willing to answer any you might have.
Not a
Steve,
question, but a comment, Steve.
Yes.
Anne and I were at Glastonbury on a Humpty Hump's birthday in 2010, and what a fabulous weekend we had. I didn't want to go in the first place because I'm getting a bit older, as you can imagine, but there was a lot of people my age and older than me there, and it was a fabulous weekend. It really was.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I would have been down there in some sort of capacity, so I didn't recognise you, I must admit, but there's 200,000 faces there. So
Oh, I saw my photograph. That particular year was the hottest that they've had for many, many years. 2010. The sun shone all weekend, and we were roasting.
yeah, I mean that in itself can present its own problems. I mean, the demand for water then can go through the roof, and certainly in 2019 it was a hot one, and it only needs the water pressure to drop a bit, or there to be an interruption to the water supply.
Yeah.
That can be as challenging as the wet weather.
Yeah,
That's what happened. Actually, we lost some of the water points went off.
Yeah,
But
it can be a
actually,
problem.
Next to our caravan, there was a tap, and they have a habit of leaving it on, and that was the only mud that we saw in the whole weekend.
Yeah.
Carol had a question.
wait, more of a comment really than a question. My daughter and partner, they went in 2017, and then my son went the following year, I think it was 2018 or 2019 maybe. And they all said about how fabulous the food was, the different varieties of food, you know, from Thai food, Chinese, Indian. And I was sort of thinking, oh, I'm not sure that's right, but you've obviously confirmed it. And the
Oh,
other
absolutely.
Yeah, they said it was absolutely out of this world, the food. And the other thing, my son told me about the silent disco, and my son's a bit of a joker, and I thought he's just having me on. So that's confirmed that. And I've always had this desire, and still have, to go. It's on my bucket list.
You should.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, I would certainly recommend it. Absolutely.
You've kind of even more so now made me think, yeah, I need to do Glastonbury. I need to go and experience it. But I'd probably do what you did, Ron, and try and take the caravan down if I could. Yeah.
They have separate areas for camping and caravans, and I mean, a lot of people stay on site, but a lot of people go back to their camper vans because they have a camper van field. A lot of people stay off site as well, so you can still go to the festival and not slum it. You know, there are other accommodation options.
So you can park, you can live 20 miles away and then drive your car in and park it and go in each day, can you?
Yeah, well, the only thing I would say is what they're trying to encourage now is people to use public transport.
Yeah.
Two ways. Firstly, it's the train. They've got a train station at Castlecary, and if you buy a train ticket, the train will dump you at Castlecary railway station, and then there are shuttle buses to the site, so that means you haven't got to take your car. The other thing is they do coach tickets as well. And what they actually construct is a coach station. If you think of the coach station in Carlisle or the one in Bristol, it has a series of stops where coaches pull up and it says this coach is going to, that coach is going. So they construct a coach station. So they're very much down to now encouraging either car sharing, public transport, the train, or coaches, rather than people taking their own cars. The problem with the car parking is once you're in there, it's difficult to get back out. It can be difficult to get back out again.
Yeah.
And do the coaches sort of coincide with sort of the times? So say the Saturday night when the headline act's on and they don't finish till 11 o'clock or 11:30. Do they all work so that if you stayed off site, you would still be able to get back to wherever you are?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the coaches, the coach station tends to be, they will bring people in Wednesday, Thursday, early part of Friday, and then they won't be taking people out again till Sunday night, Monday morning. There's not necessarily much of a regular bus service passing the site. I mean, I think if you were, I mean, people call taxis to the site and jump in a taxi and go to and from, if they live somewhere else. I mean, you'd have to explore what was best for you, realistically.
Can I pose a hypothetical question, Mr. President? You mentioned the difficulty of probably having mass gatherings in the future, and Glastonbury being one of them. But how do you feel about no vaccination, no entry in order to try and protect the crowd?
Well, I think that is already being spoken about in general terms, because they had a discussion on the BBC News this morning about.
That's what made me think about it.
Yeah, whether you can compel people working in certain industries to say no jab, no job. Certainly, the Purple Guide. A lot of large-scale events have structural documents associated with them. The football industry, I mean, I obviously used to police a lot of football matches, and I actually used to train police commanders for football. And football matches are guided by something called the Green Guide. And that lays out certain stipulations, the ages for stewards, the construction of grounds and things of that nature. So that's the Green Guide for football. For large events, it's called the Purple Guide. And with the Purple Guide, they've already started looking at the implications of the COVID pandemic on large events such as this. I mean, one example which was quoted was let's say, for example, our security teams on occasions travel round in Land Rovers. You might have 5 or 6 security personnel in a Land Rover. Just imagine that one of those people got COVID. What have you then got to do? You've got to self-isolate the other 5 members of the crew.
Yeah.
You've got to deep clean the vehicle. And where do you get people to take over their roles that they were going to be doing? So even a small things like that, one person, for example, in the medical facility there getting COVID. How many people do you isolate? Can we still bring patients in there, etc., etc.? I know, you know, it may well be that they'd in the future. I mean, they're still talking about COVID passports. It may well be in the future that you'll have an app on your phone, or it might be bolted onto your NHS app to say, yes, I am up to date with my inoculations, and we scan that as we go in.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they've got a bit of time to think about it, bearing in mind that it's not going to be on this year. So they've got another 18 months to perhaps bottom that out.
Good.
Steve, can I just formally, as it were, thank you very, very much indeed for a fascinating presentation. Just amazing what goes into the preparation and the running of the festival. Just a very quick question from me. How long does it actually take from starting to prepare to clearing it all up?
Well, the fact that my colleague Adrian isn't there today, and there's not even a festival on this year, he's doing something on the site. They have a certain core of people there working on the festival throughout the year. They have a base actually on the farm. With regards to the main structures that you see there, as I said, everything apart from the skeleton of the pyramid stage and the bottom of the crane, the Arcadia crane, everything else is taken away every year. And a lot of the larger tents will go on to other festivals, other events, etc., etc. I think they start building it sort of March, April time. They put the fence round, they start getting security teams in there. I mean, it's all, the vast majority of it is powered by generators. So Agreco make shed loads of money from the festival providing generators, so we've got to get all those in, and they're building it right up until you know, the Wednesday, Thursday before the main entertainment comes on the Friday, and then as soon as they can, everything out, you know. So, but they build it up over the course of a couple of months. They take it down, I would suggest, substantially quicker. But I mean, for example, the sort of infrastructure that goes in. They have a wholesale food market on site, whereas somebody running, let's say, a kebab shop in Carlisle might go to your local Booker's or cash and carry or something of that nature. They have actually got a cash and carry wholesale market on site, so that the caterers don't even have to go off site, and all that needs taken down, the refrigeration units taken away, etc., etc. So, I mean, there are certain aspects of it happening throughout the year. Improvements to the site, putting extra roadways in, etc.
How many people work on the site?
Well, the actual tickets are 135,000. When you take into account all the volunteers, the security staff, the people, you normally get around about 200,000 people on the site. So if you add that up, there's probably about another 60,000 coming in, coming out, security staff, the volunteers, stewarding, etc., etc., etc.
Right.
Okay.
Steve, I've just sent you a chat line. Will you email me your address and the payee for the check?
Yes, I will, by all means. I will, by all means.
Okay.
And you will know David Yates.
The name doesn't ring a bell, I must admit. Can you?
He was district governor in 2004-5.
I should do. I mean, I have to say, we've had an ex-district governor in our club, Ron McKechnie, and I do know some of the. I mean, I've helped out with district conferences in the past. That particular name doesn't ring a bell, but that may well be. That's my
Right.
old age kicking in. I can't remember the names now.
I know Mr. McKechnie. I remember Mr. McKechnie quite well. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very, very much indeed. That's been absolutely fascinating.
Well, best wishes from our president, Helen, to all
Yeah.
of you. Stay safe, stay warm, stay well. Get your injections when they come round, because it's going to help to have events like this on again.
Yeah.
Best wishes to you, and I'll drop you an email, Tony, very shortly.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, nice to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. Wow.
Fascinating.
That's very
That was
interesting.
good, eh?
Yeah. Particularly for those of us who have been.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.